All right, this video is going to be on the history of the ARRT. That's the American Registry of Radiologic Science. Sorry, American Registry of Radiologic Technologists. It's going to be a little meaty, but it's important for you to watch the whole thing because there's a lot of things that the ARRT does, and a lot of things you need to know in the big concept of what an X-ray tech is and what they do. And I get questions like, where should I go to school for it? Well, this has to do with that. Um, all the questions about the exam, these are the people that make the exam. And so I'm going to go through I will link to the article that I wrote about the ARRT, and you can read it if you want to. In prior videos, previous videos, I've been saying, here's an article that I wrote about such and such. Go read that, and then here's my video to discuss it. But what I'm finding is some people are watching this series or listening to it as they're driving, or just listening to the audio version of it, and for some reason aren't able to go read the article. So I'm going to go over the article in this video about the ARRT, and it's going to cover a lot of things, including the test, the ARRT certification exam for X-ray tech. So grab a drink and sit back and relax and be ready for a little bit longer of a video, but I'll try and go as quick as I can so we can blast through it. So here we go. The article that I wrote is called The American Registry of Radiologic Technologists, Everything You Need to Know About the ARRT. And whenever I write one of those, it's pretty inclusive, like all inclusive. Like I did one on markers, X-ray markers, and it's everything you could ever want to know about markers. But let's get started. So in the medical world today, healthcare institutions are obligated to ensure patient safety and deliver an acceptable standard of care. Healthcare professionals like doctors, nurses, pharmacists, dentists, surgeons, radiologists, and psychologists play a crucial role in achieving this level of care. However, healthcare institutions must first ensure that these healthcare providers are qualified, ergo credentialing them from organizations like the ARRT that we're going to discuss. So credentialing, if you've never heard the word, it's a process that uses like an established guideline to obtain, verify, and evaluate a medical practitioner's documentation of their education, their training, their employment history, licensure, their regulatory compliance or malpractice history. Credentialing is looking at everything about that person to make sure that they are holding up an acceptable standard of care. So to put it briefly, it is the process of assessing the educational qualifications and the clinical practice history of any medical provider. So credentialing is therefore a vital process in ensuring healthcare providers are qualified to provide clinical services in any healthcare organization. There have been various reported cases of healthcare providers working in hospitals with falsified experience certificates. So, credentialing also ensures patients that they are receiving care from competent medical providers. Interestingly, the concept of credentialing has been in practice for like 1,000 years. There were physicians all the way back in Persia who were required to demonstrate their skills and training before they were allowed to practice their art. So the process, though, has evolved, of course, and is today more refined and thorough. Credentialing has also become has become more complex, primarily because of the expansion of the scope of practice and the number of accrediting bodies and the requirements of third-party payers, insurances like Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance carriers. There are several national commissions dedicated to establishing the standards of verifying practitioners' credentials. One of them, for example, is the National Committee for Quality Assurance, which is the NCQA, and that the NCQA standards currently act as the guideline on how to accurately and efficiently credential healthcare providers. So that's the doctors. One of the fundamental guiding principles of the NCQA in regards to credentialing is checking with the primary source to verify the certificates, or if they have any certificates, a diploma, or a degree. providing an original diploma or degree is no longer considered enough for credentialing. You used to just have to show and they'd fake it, right? They give a fake diploma so they'd get credentialed and off they'd be practicing. Well, now any additionally medical institutions or credentialing verification organizations, I'll just call them CVOs, must also obtain primary source verification of the practitioner's education and training. That means the school has to tell these CVOs, yes, they have to verify, yes, this person went here, yes, they graduated, yes, they met the minimum requirements for graduation, C grades or better or whatever. So besides verifying a healthcare provider's education and the training, excuse me, an employer or the CVOs should also obtain and check information on, but not limited to, board certification, state license, DEA license. That's for pharmacology for the doctors. Hospital admitting privileges, malpractice claims, what's their work history, professional references, and do a criminal background check. So today there are various CVOs, the credentialing verification organizations that conduct verification through a primary source, a recognized source, or a contracted agent of the primary source. So somebody who speaks on behalf of the school they went to, in other words. One such organization is the American Registry of Radiologic Technologists, the ARRT. That's us. So let's talk about the ARRT. The American Registry of Radiologic Technologists is the leading credentials verification organization for individuals in medical imaging and interventional procedures and radiation therapy. ARRT offers certification and registration in several disciplines for candidates that meet their education, ethics, and examination requirements. And we'll talk more about those 3 requirements in a minute. The organization also advocates for safety and advancement in radiologic science careers by supporting initiatives such as the Image Gently Alliance and contributing to industry research studies. So it's important for you to know that the ART isn't just, they don't just give a test and you pass or fail. There's a lot of things that they're involved in. Same for the ASRT, but we'll talk about that in another video. So I'm just going to go real quick over the ART's backbone, like their mission. The ART's mission is to promote high standards of patient care by recognizing qualified individuals in medical imaging, interventional procedures, and radiation therapy. They do this by adopting and upholding standards for educational preparation for entry into our profession, adopting and upholding standards of professional behavior consistent with the level of responsibility required by professional practice, and 3, developing and administering examinations that assess the knowledge and skills required by a professional practice. And then besides offering initial recognition, the ARRT also provides a way to recognize individuals who continue to demonstrate their qualifications by adhering to these standards of professional behavior and by complying with continued education requirements. They do that through their magazine. They do that through different things that they do. To ensure they succeed in their mission, the ART applies the following equation. Education plus ethics plus examination equals the ARRT equation of excellence. Now, they've recently trademarked that expression because it's getting thumbtacked to them a lot now. And I'll discuss in depth the 3 elements that add up to that excellence later. So a little history on the ART. And this starts to delve into, if you've heard of the rub of being called a technician versus a technologist. Once you know the ART's history and the history of X-ray techs, you'll know that in the beginning, well, I'll just explain it to you here. So 1922 saw various historical events throughout the world, big stuff like the dedication of the Lincoln Memorial on May 30th, 1922, the formation of the British Broadcasting Company, the BBC, which is now British Broadcasting Corporation. That was October 18th of 1922. And the formation of the Soviet Union was December 30th, 1922. It was also the first year insulin was used to treat diabetes. Now, toward the end of the year, on November 17th, Sister M. Beatrice Merrigan of St. Anthony's Hospital in Oklahoma City, shout out to Oklahoma City, Edmund Bulldog here. She took her radiology exam, which she passed, Sister American was then notified of her certification on December 26th, making her the first registered technologist. And unlike today's computer-based testing experience that covers several hundred questions, her test included 20 essay questions and 10 actual radiographs. She had to take X-rays to pass her boards back in 1922. So I do that on interviews for like ultrasound techs. I'll ask them to scan one of the employees. So the ARRT was the registry founded earlier that year by the Radiologic Society of North America, which is the RSNA. You hear about them every year, huge shindig in Chicago. It's always been in only 1 year. It hasn't been in Chicago in like 80 years. The RSNA, and with the support of the American Rankin-Ray Society and the American Society of X-ray Technicians. There's the word technicians. So you can see all the way back then, there were X-ray technicians. It was later incorporated as the American Registry of X-ray Technicians in 1936, with its board nominated by the RSNA folks and the American Society of X-ray Technicians. So by the end of the decade, the organization had registered more than 2,400 technologists. Now, come 1944, the ACR, which you'll hear in the biz all the time, that's the American College of Radiology, and the ASRT, which I mentioned earlier, the American Society of Radiologic Technologists, those two took over the responsibility of appointing board members. 4 decades after its foundation, the registry broadened its examination, the ARRT, and certification program by adding exams in nuclear medicine and radiation therapy. Additionally, the organization then became known as the American Registry of Radiologic Technologists. So that was 1944. Okay, so jump to the end of 1960s. The ARRT had awarded 56,000 certificates. Of these, approximately 700 were in nuke med, 300 were in radiation therapy. And if once you get to know this field, you can see that numerical breakdown. There's always less radiation therapists than there are nuclear medicine, and there's much less nuclear medicine than there are CT or X-ray, because people, as they're trying to decide what they want to do, like somebody will say, I really like radiation therapy, should I go into that field? Well, you should know that you don't need a lot of them out there. It only takes a handful of them to run a cancer center, as opposed to an X-ray tech. We need 50 of them in a hospital. So anyway, the 90s saw, so that was the 60s. The 90s saw the ARRT expansion extensively in its offerings. They launched the PostPrimary pathway, which means once you get a license, now you can get another license. So the PostPrimary pathway with certifications in cardiovascular intervention and mammography. And then more disciplines were included as technology advanced. As the millennium came to an end, the ARRT switched to computer-based testing from the traditional paper and pencil testing, and the ARRT has certified more than 330,000 technologists since being formed 90 plus years ago. So I always remind that to students who say, I don't know if I can pass the boards. 330,000 plus have already done it. There's no reason that you can't do it. So I'm going to quickly go through the boring stuff, the ARRT governance and the things like that, but you need to hear it at least once as you're checking out the field or you're becoming a student. You need to hear this at least once. So let's just get it out of the way. Okay, the ARRT governance. The ARRT has a 10-member board of trustees that governs the organization and establishes its policies. And here's how the trustees are selected. The ASRT appoints 5 board members. The ASRT is the leading professional organization for the medical imaging and radiation therapy community. The association, not the credentialing. That's where people, especially newbies, get confused. The ARRT provides the credentialing. The ASRT is the professional association that you belong to and get involved in making changes to laws and things like that. A 6th member is nominated from a professional member society like the ACR, strategically chosen by the board. The American College of Radiology, the ACR, nominates the remaining trustees. The ACR is the leading professional medical society for diagnostic radiologists, the doctors, the gists, the ists. So they're made up of the radiologists, interventional radiologists, radiation oncologists, nuclear medicine physicians, clinical medical physicists, all those doctors. And in my article at the time, I posted who the president, VP, and treasurer and all that was. We'll just skip through that part. So that board of all the people that are on it are in charge of establishing the organization's policies, and that includes the bylaws, the rules and regulations, the standards of the ethics you're going to be held to, the continuing education requirements you're going to be held to, the new continuing qualifications requirements, or CQR, and the code of ethics. So the sneak peek of the bylaws here. I'm not going to read the bylaws. You can go check that out. The bylaws have to do with how do you get to be one of those chosen people. You have to be a part of a certain organization and all these things. So let's jump to the rule. Well, if I'm going to be thorough, I'm going to be thorough, right? Here's the quick bylaws. One, a person cannot serve as a trustee if he or she is serving as or has been elected as an officer, employee, director, or trustee of any of the following organizations. If you've done American Medical Association, American Society of Radiologic Technologists, national organizations that offer accreditation or certification in one or more of the following modalities, which the ARRT offers, the ACR, or any other organization that nominates individuals for appointment to the ARRT board. So you can't be a trustee. A person cannot serve as a trustee if he or she is serving or has been elected as. So if you're one of those others, you can't double dip. Then appointed trustee shall serve a term of 4 years. So they're in the seat for 4 years. No trustee shall serve more than 2 terms, like the president. The board's duties and responsibilities include electing officers of the organization, removing officers and trustees, employing an executive director, taking disciplinary action against the holder of an ARRT certificate, because you can get in trouble and get your stuff suspended or revoked, and approve an annual budget. And then finally, any officer elected by the board may be removed with or without cause at any time by a 2/3 vote of the entire board. Now, the ARRT rules and regulations. Here's what will directly affect you if you get in this field. I'm just going to go over the general ones. There's a lot of them. So I'll give you top 6 here. 1, the ARRT shall certify and register individuals who meet the qualifications that it establishes for the various disciplines comprising the profession. These disciplines include, but are not limited to, radiography, nuke med, radiation therapy, mammography, CT, MRI, sonography, and radiologist assistant, the RA. If you don't know what an RA or an RRA, registered radiologist assistant, I'll put a link in the description below, and you can go check it out. It's like a PA in the world of radiology. So the ARRT certifies those disciplines. A candidate must meet the ethics, education, and examination requirements established by the ARRT to qualify for certification registration. You got to meet those 3 just to qualify to take the test. It doesn't mean you're getting certified. It means you have to meet ethics, education, and examination requirements established by the ARRT to qualify for the certification and registration. Number 3, applications are to be filled out with ARRT in a format and manner established by the organization. So they have a certain application you have to fill out. There will also be an application fee whose sum is fixed by the Board of Trustees. You got to pay to apply, right? Number 4, certification and registration is renewable yearly as long as an individual continues to meet the requirements described in the ARRT rules and regulations. The individual is also expected to fulfill other requirements as set by the Board of Trustees from time to time. So that's saying we have to renew every year, and there's a deadline, and if you miss it, you're in trouble, and you pay a late fee, or you have to write a letter why you missed it, whatever. Number 5, an individual may have their certification and registration reinstated if he or she meets the ARRT requirements for reinstatement. So if you forget to register or whatever, and you lapse, you can't work without that license, that certification. So there's a protocol in place to get you reinstated. Don't let that happen. Number 6, if an individual does not meet or fails to continue meeting the qualifications for certification and registration set out in the ARRT rules and regulations and or in the ARRT standards of ethics, The Board of Trustees may reject or deny an application, refuse the renewal of your certification and registration, or suspend or revoke your certification and registration, or revoke eligibility to reinstate it all. So these guys don't mess around. Keep your nose clean. Now, you say, well, what's this code of ethics that you got to live by? I thought I just had to take a test. Nope. You got the code of ethics. So the ARRT code of ethics serves as a guide by which certificate holders and candidates may evaluate their professional conduct in connection with patients, healthcare consumers, employers, colleagues, and other members of the healthcare team. The code of ethics is meant to assist these individuals in maintaining a high level of ethical conduct while providing protection, safety, and comfort to the patients. So here are some of the sections of the ARRT Code of Ethics. 1, the radiologic technologist has to act in a professional manner. 2, the radiologic technologist delivers patient care without discrimination. Number 3, the radiologic technologist acts in the best interest of the patient. Number 4, I can think of all kinds of ways that comes into play. Doctor orders the wrong exam. It's your job when those doctors give you pushback and say, I'm the doctor, do what I say. My code of ethics dictates that I have to act in the best interest of the patient. You ordered a left foot. It's clearly the right foot that's injured. Please rewrite your order. Number 4, the radiologic technologist continually strives to improve knowledge and skills. You have to because of the CE requirements anyway, but you should want to as a professional. Number 5, the radiologic technologist refrains from the use of illegal drugs and or any legally controlled substances. Number 6, the radiologic technologist demonstrates expertise in minimizing radiation exposure to the patient, self, and other members of the healthcare team. You got to know about ARRA, as low as reasonably achievable. You'll learn about that in the future. Number 7, the radiologic technologist acts as an agent through observation and communication to obtain pertinent information for the physician to aid in the diagnosis and treatment of the patient. So this is calling you out for paying attention to what's going on. If you do something that's blatantly in disregard of the rules and regulations, they're going to say you should have known by observing what was going on and blah, blah, blah. So that's the code of ethics. Where are we at on our times here? Oh, shoot, it doesn't tell me. Okay, so there are credentialing options to the ARRT. You can pursue credential options to the ARRT using one of 3 pathways, right? There's the primary eligibility pathway, the post-primary eligibility pathway, and then they got this third offshoot for RAs. RAs are special. They get their own thing. So primary pathway just means you're starting out, you're brand new. It's your first thing you're getting. I'm going to Xray school. That's a primary pathway. The post-primary eligibility pathway means you have to have met another set of eligibility requirements in order to get into the post-primary eligibility pathway. And I'll go over that. So as it's been noted in other parts of this article, for you to earn your ARRT certification and registration, you'll need to meet the organization's education, ethics, and examination requirements. Earning an ARRT credential is challenging but achievable and worth it. It increases your job prospects as it confirms your qualifications to employers and patients as well. To begin the certification and registration process, you will need to identify the eligibility path that you want to choose and the discipline that you would like to earn a credential. So most people on the primary eligibility pathway, just starting out, most people earn their first ARRT credential through the primary eligibility pathway. You can earn credentials in the following discipline under this pathway: MRI, nuke med, radiation therapy, radiography, and sonography. Now, I wrote this article in 2019, and there's a possibility some things may have changed. But what they're saying is, people say, do I have to be an X-ray tech first before I go into ultrasound? Back in the day, yes, in 2003. So I went to X-ray school 2003 to 2005. I then turned right back around and got into ultrasound school. But in order to be eligible to apply to ultrasound school, you had to be something else first. You had to be an X-ray tech or a respiratory therapist or an ultrasound tech or a physical therapist or a nurse. Those are the 5 things you had to already have under your belt in order to apply. Now you can go straight into it. So people that say, I don't know if I want to be an X-ray tech or an ultrasound tech. Well, you can go straight to ultrasound now. You don't have to take the long way like I did. So this just said your primary pathway can be MRI. You can go straight in MRI with nothing else first. Nuke med, same thing. Radiation therapy, same thing. X-ray, of course, is the starting ground. And ultrasound, you can go straight into. The education requirements. Education gives you the foundation of knowledge and experience that you'll need to become a registered technologist and pass the ARRT exam. To meet the education requirement for the primary eligibility pathway, you must have earned an associate's degree or higher from an institution accredited by an agency that the ARRT recognizes. It can't just be some fly-by-night. It has to be an organization that the ARRT recognizes. And there's a list of them on their website. The degree doesn't have to be in the radiologic science. And while you can earn prior to or after graduating from your rad science program, you must receive it before taking your ARRT exam. Now, an associate's or more advanced degree is important because the required general education courses in those provide a foundation that will support your evolving role as a technologist. Furthermore, they will help you shape and advance your role in healthcare, as well as the communication skills, quantitative skills, and understanding of human behavior that you acquire by taking all these classes. There's a method to the madness, believe it or not. So, completed an ARRT approved educational program in the same discipline as the credential you are pursuing. That sentence doesn't make sense. As part of the program, you'll need to demonstrate your competency in didactic coursework and clinical procedures. So didactic just means classroom. Clinical means on the job, right? The program director of your X-ray program will inform the ARRT whether you meet the requirements once you complete their program. So in other words, you have to pass the X-ray school with certain grades, with certain competencies, certain criteria have to be met in order to consider yourself successfully graduated. But that just sets you up to now go take the exam. If you pass X-ray school and don't pass the ARRT exam, you can't go do X-ray unless the caveat, the loophole is there's still about 6 states in America that don't require certification. So you could, if you fail to pass the ARRT exam, you could go work in any one of those 6 states. But the program director will inform the ARRT whether you meet the requirements once you complete the program. You then have 3 years thereafter to establish eligibility and apply for the ARRT certification and registration. So once you graduate your X-ray program, you have 3 years to go sit for the boards, and the clock starts ticking. After that, I think you have to go back to school again, or there's a form that says you've done. I don't know. I've never done that. I don't want to do that, but there are things you can do if you fail the ARRT board exams or don't get registered by 3 years. Now let's talk about the ethics requirements. To become a candidate to sit for the boards and get certified, you must demonstrate good moral character. Well, what is that? The ARRT Standards of Ethics has more detailed information on the types of behavior the organization expects of RTs and those they won't tolerate. The Standards of Ethics, which is one of ARRT's governing documents, includes a code of ethics. There's code of ethics, rules of ethics, and then you got to inform the ARRT if you break a rule. The code of ethics is a set of guidelines that X-ray techs are held to, and then the rule of ethics are mandatory and enforceable standards that they can hold you to. And then there's the ethics review process should you get in trouble. That's the ethics requirement. Then there's the examination requirement, right? There was 3 things we talked about. The examination requirement, after you meet the education and the ethics, so after you've passed the appropriate schooling and after you've attested to the ethics portion of the application, then you'll need to pass the exam before you get your ARRT credentials. The ARRT exams measure your knowledge of the daily tasks an entry-level technologist performs. And we'll dig deeper into exams in another section. I'll probably do a whole dedicated video to the exam itself. So that was all primary pathway. Then there's post-primary pathway at the ARRT. The post-primary eligibility pathway is for those who are currently certified and registered with the ARRT and would like to pursue an additional credential. The pathway may also be used by those who hold a credential from the ARDMS, the American Registry for Diagnostic Medical Sonography. So the ultrasound techs have their own ARRT. ARRT is for all the ones I mentioned that use radiation. For sonography, those who use ultrasound waves, they have the ARDMS, the American Registry for Diagnostic Medical Sonography. Now, both the ARDMS and the ARRT offer a sonography credential, and that's a whole other topic. But the gold standard is the ARDMS. And then there's also the Nuclear Medicine Technologies Certification Board, or the NMTCB. So if you hold a credential in the ARDMS or the NMTCB, you can qualify to sit for an exam in the post-primary pathway. I know it's getting confusing, but just stay with me. So the credentials you can earn in the post-primary are bone densitometry, or DEXA scanning, breast sonography, cardiac interventional radiography, CT, MRI, mammo, sonography, vascular interventional radiography, and vascular sonography. But you'll have to double check on all that ultrasound stuff. Some of that's been moved around. I don't know that sonography is a post-primary eligibility pathway anymore. So on this post-primary, the education requirement is, let's see, you got to be ART certified and registered in appropriate supporting category, or by the NMTCB or the ARDMS. And then you have to meet the structured education requirement, which requires you for that, say you're Xray certified at the ART and you now want to go for the MRI boards. There's a 16 credit hour educational requirement in there for these post primaries that you have to do. So you have to be licensed as an Xray tech, for example, and then complete 16 hours of structured educational activities. And then there's comps, just like there is for Xray. There's comps for every other modality. A comp or competency is a list of all the exams we do. And when you're a student in Xray, you have to complete all of those during your schooling. And it's a common phrase is see one, do one, teach one, meaning you'll see somebody do one, and then they'll teach you how to do it, and then you've got to do it for them. And once you do it successfully, and there's a criteria for what that means to do it successfully, once you do everything correctly for that one exam, like say a hand X-ray, once you do it on your own completely without mistake, then a registered technologist signs off on a competency sheet that you completed that one exam. And you've got to do that for every single exam that we do, for the most part. I mean, there's a little bit of leeway, and there's some things you can simulate if you don't ever get them at your facility, but more about that later. So for this post-primary pathway, you have to be registered through one of those three. You have to get 16 hours of education, and you have to have the clinical competencies done to sit for that exam. Same ethics required, same examination. I mean, pertinent to that modality. And then the RRAs, the registered radiologic assistants, have their own education requirements. They have to have a bachelor's degree from an institution accredited by an agency that the ARRT recognizes. So they had to get their RA from somewhere like Weber State that's recognized. They have to be certified and registered in radiography with the ARRT. Have at least 1 year of acceptable clinical experience, again, competencies, and complete the ARRT approved RA program by one of the schools that offers that. Same ethics, same exam. I mean, they could take an exam. And so I think we're going to wrap it there as far as that. That's a big overview of the ARRT and what they do. A little bit of mention of the ASRT and the ACR. And the NMTCB and the ARDMS, which are over ultrasound and nuke med. So the ARRT basically is over all the X-ray stuff. And I'll do a separate video on the exams because the exam is a big meaty topic. And if I try to cram it in here now, we'll be talking for another hour. So let's wrap it up here. Remember, if you have any questions about what we're talking about, you can post them in the comments section and I'll be happy to answer them. If you haven't noticed, if you're following this on YouTube only, what you're missing is that these videos are embedded in a course that I created on my blog. If you go to the radiologictechnologist.com and click on Survival Guide, you will see that each one of these videos is actually embedded in a page where I'm talking about a bunch of stuff and linking to a bunch of stuff. I will be putting more information on the blog because that's where I'm creating everything than I will in the comment section on the YouTube video. I'll try to keep them up to date, but my primary work is being done in the blog. And then when I get time, I go back and transfer stuff over to YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you are tuned in, dialed in, watching this on the radiologictechnologist.com, because there'll be a lot of comments and linked articles and things underneath the video on the blog that aren't necessarily on YouTube. So hope this helps. See you in the next video.